Hey YouTube, this is my first video that I've ever done. Just started getting into reloading. I watched countless YouTube videos on how to reload and you know, things like that. I found a lot of good information from a lot of different places, and I wanted to just kind of put that together in one place. One of the things that I found in looking at a lot of the videos online was guys showing you how to set up the full-length sizer dies. So I followed the instructions that came with obviously my dies themselves, as well as the information that I found on YouTube. And I set up the way that I would set up my sizer die is I would bring my RAM all the way up. I would bring my sizer die down till it touches. I would get the RAM out of the way, and I'd bring in the sizer die about another quarter turn or so, bring the RAM up, and when the RAM was up, it would just cam over just a little bit when it got to the bottom of the stroke, and then that's how I would size my brass. Now in the 30-06 that I was shooting, I started off at the low end of the recommended load. So I'm using IMR 4064 powder, and based on that, I'm going off like almost a minimum loads that was recommended in the loading manual. What I was finding was that, I don't know if you can see that very well, but what I was finding was that my primers were getting flattened. So I didn't have those nice round edges like everybody said that I was supposed to be seeing. I immediately was concerned over you know, over pressure and things like that, but it bothered me because I was using the minimum loads for the powder itself, so I wasn't exactly sure what was going on. What I found was that I had excessive headspace, and what headspace is the distance from the base of the cartridge here to the, I think it's called the ogive, I think is what it's called, of the case itself. So a point on the angled portion of the case here, that distance here. And what I found was that when I was setting up my sizer die the way that I was, you know, setting it up like this, what was happening was I was actually pushing that case too far, pushing that shoulder too far back towards the base of the case. What was happening when the round was actually chambering, there was just a little bit of a give between the chamber and the round itself, and there was a little bit of gap between the bolt face and the base of the cartridge here. And what was actually happening when the round was firing is that the round would go off, the primer would actually be pushed out of the case just slightly because of the pressure that was building up inside of the case. When that pressure built up and the bullet actually started to leave the case and go down the barrel, what was happening was then the case would then be pushed back into the bolt, and it would kind of crush the primer. But what I did in order to fix this is this. The first thing that I do, adjust my sizer die pretty much all the way up, and you can use a decapping die if you wanted to for this. And I bring my my depriming pin all the way down. And what I do is the first step I go through and I just knock the primer out. And the reason why I knock the primer out like this is when I take measurements now from this case head here, I'm sure that the primer is not sticking out and it's not going to screw up my measurement. So what I'll do is I'll actually measure this case now. So I have a Hornady Headspace comparator. One of these kits here. It has instructions on the back on exactly how to use this, but based on the caliber that I'm using here, I have one of the I think they're called comparators, I think, mounted into my caliper. And what I'm going to actually do here is I'm going to measure these cases that have been fired in my specific rifle. What this does is when the case is fired in that rifle, excuse me, when the case is fired in that rifle, it will actually fire form to the dimensions of my specific chamber. So now when I measure this, I'll measure this, and from the base of the case to that shoulder is coming out to be about 2.002 inches. I don't know if you can see that in the video or not, but 2.002 inches. So this case has essentially been stretched inside of my specific chamber. Okay, so now I'm going to take another case that was also fired in there. I'm going to set up my die the original way that I was doing it. So bringing it all the way down, touching the RAM, bringing it down about another 1/8 to 1/4 of a turn, getting my depriming pin out of the way. And now this case has been lubed. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and size this. And when I size this case now, and I measure it, okay, what you find is the case, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but the case now is actually about 1.994 inches. So what's essentially happened to the shoulder of this case is that it was pushed back from the 2.002 to the 1.995. It was actually pushed back 7/1000ths of an inch. That 7/1000ths of an inch doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it just lets that cartridge, when it's inside of the chamber, move around just a little bit, and when it actually fires, it lets the primer be pushed out. It lets the primer be pushed out of the case a little bit, and the case to move back and to give you those flattened primers. Instead of setting up my sizing die like that, what I do is I will take one of these cases that's only been fired in my gun one time, single fired case. I'll measure that, and then what I'll do is I will bring my die up so that I know it's not going to come into contact. I'll put my case in here, and I'll keep sizing that case and measuring it, bringing it down a little bit further, going through again, just to the point where I see the shoulder of the cartridge starting to be pushed back, like 1/2,000th or 1/1000th of an inch. What I try to do is I try to keep that shoulder back, push it back no more than 1/1000th of an inch. And what I found as a result is I'm getting nice, what I'll call rounded primers after I fire the cartridge. So there's obviously the dimple in the middle, and then the edges of my primers are nice and round all the way around. So that's just something that I've learned, and hopefully this information somebody else can use. And if you're having that similar problem, hopefully it's something that you can give a try to, and hopefully it'll work for you. I'm brand new to reloading. I've maybe reloaded 500 of these already. Or so it's not a whole lot, but it's a few. And if anybody has any comments or suggestions for me on how to make it even better, even more accurate, essentially that's what I wanted. That's why I got into this, to make the most accurate round I could. Please feel free to leave me some comments. They would be much appreciated. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.